Let's bring in our political panel now, the former Victorian Liberal Party President Michael Kroger, former Labor Minister Stephen Conroy. Great to see you both as always. Stephen, has the Prime Minister got the balance right when it comes to responding to that incident with the Chinese Navy?
Well, look, what we know is that the previous government under Scott Morrison became a megaphone, they turned megaphone diplomacy into their only way to do business. And that was spectacularly unsuccessful. What Albanese and Penny Wong have been able to do is get us on an even keel. It doesn't mean we've ceded anything. It doesn't mean we've given up any of our national sovereignty to be able to get them to give up on their outrageous trade barriers to us. We've been able to get conversations and dialogue started. So this is a plus. What the opposition and others in the media have been trying to do is get us back to that stage where there was no conversation whatsoever taking place with our biggest trading partner. This is deeply unhealthy, and we know that it is bad for Australian trade sector, bad for Australia as a whole, if we're seen to be just screaming abuse at China simply for domestic political purposes. And that's what needs to be seen here. Peter Dutton and those commentators are just screaming into the wind like they were when in government. It didn't work for them in government. It won't work for them in opposition. Australians want the government of Australia to be able to deal with on an even keel.
Michael Kroger, the Prime Minister yesterday on this program, when he spoke to me yesterday, I asked him this very question, should he be upfront? And he says that he's not going to divulge conversations had on the sidelines of a summit. Is this, as Stephen says, is this diplomacy at work, that he can still raise these issues very strongly and unequivocally, but just not talking about them when he's finished having those conversations?
No, it's probably a convenient answer when you haven't raised something to say, I'm not going to talk about private conversations. I mean, debriefings following leaders' meetings is standard, Kieran. It happens after every meeting. We discuss this, we discuss that. We've seen thousands of interviews given post-leadership discussions between leaders of rival nations or different nations. So there was no reason why Albanese couldn't have said what happened. I saw the interview yesterday on your show. The fact that he wouldn't go into the details tells you something. And the naval incident was a pretty serious incident. So, you know, I think he should have been more upfront about this than he has been. And it probably, as I said, it tells you he didn't raise the matter. And if he didn't, he should have just said so.
So, Kieran,
Stephen,
let me give you an example of the hypocrisy of Michael and the Liberals at the moment. Famously, Kevin Rudd made a phone call to George, I think, W. Bush, and he actually let a senior journalist listen into the phone conversation. And then it all got leaked onto the front page of a newspaper. And this was considered poor form by a leader, that he would reveal secret contents of conversations that weren't part of the official. And Michael correctly describes when you have an official meeting in that way, there's an agenda, there's talking points, and then both sides brief out what was said during that. But in unofficial sidebar conversations like at conferences and in phone conversations between leaders, you just don't leak in the way that Michael is trying to suggest. That's the norm. I remember the Liberal Party excoriating Kevin Rudd because he allowed to be revealed information on a one-on-one conversation between him and George W. Bush.
Well, I think, Kieran, the reason George Bush and the Americans were unhappy was that I think that conversation took place at Kirribilli, if I remember. I don't think George Bush, the President of the United States, knew that a journalist was on the line. So I think it's probably why people are a little bit upset with Kevin Rudd at the time, and I think quite rightly so, mate.
Yeah, normally you do declare who's at the other end of the phone. Now, let's talk about the High Court decision. Michael, the opposition felt like they had a really good week in the Parliament last week, but the government has now tidied up some of the legislative response to what was an unexpected ruling by the High Court on indefinite detention, Michael.
Look, it's a very difficult issue, but what we know is that Labor should have been prepared for the hearing. They weren't. They were shocked. They were feet in the mud, caught with their pants down, not expecting this result because the legal advice they got said it wouldn't be this result. Well, okay, sometimes legal advice is wrong, as we know. In every contested hearing, one side's got the legal advice wrong. So, of course, they should have been prepared. And they got that wrong. Yes, amendments have gone through with the help of Peter Dutton and KG. To see the Deputy Prime Minister and a delegation go around to the opposition and say, please help us, reinforces in everyone's mind that Labor are not the party for these types of issues. If you're concerned about national security, illegal immigration, people making refugee claims which might be false, Labor is not the natural party for those issues, and the real damage to Labor has been in people seeing that they were completely out of their depth on this issue and had to go and seek help from Peter Dutton and James Patterson, and that's exactly what happened in this situation, and it hasn't done Labor any good, mate.
Stephen, it was certainly the opposition leader's comfort zone. It's his comfort zone, isn't it, in terms of his political and policy response.
If you don't mind him talking out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, again, today it's been revealed, of the 93 people involved in this case, the Liberal Party, the former government, had released 5 of them into the community already. 5 of the 93 who are in this case, Peter Dutton actually released. And this goes back to them talking tough about how we can never let people get these temporary visas when they've got these secret flights between Manus Island and Papua New Guinea into Adelaide, as they slowly brought these people out of permanent detention on the islands where we were holding them. So they would talk the big tough fight. What they were actually doing is acting Labor's policy of wanting to see people taken out of permanent mandatory detention. So 5 of those 93 on your screen right now, Peter Dutton released into the community. It's just, talk about two-faced on this issue. Talk tough, but absolutely hypocritical.
I don't think there were any murderers among those 5, though, Stephen. I don't think they were murderers or rapists or child molesters or terrorists. Anyway, go on. Sorry,
Michael,
KG.
I want to ask you, Michael, about this weekend. We've got the Senate pre-selection. I know it's not your state, but there are 2 favourites, Monica Tudor-Hope and Andrew Constance. Have you got a read on where this goes? Should the female candidate be chosen to replace Marise Payne? Because this is her vacancy.
Well, I've got a lot of friends in the New South Wales division, mate, and whatever you say about another state's pre-selection will get you into extraordinary trouble. And Stephen will know, giving advice to another division of the Labor or Liberal Party and what they should do is a kiss. It is an absolute kiss of death and gets you nothing, because, as John Howard once said, when he said leadership, he said reshuffles are never any good. And he said because those you promote are angry because they realise they think they should have been promoted earlier. Those you demote, of course, are furious, and those you don't promote, well, they're furious too. So it's a little bit the same, KG. Yeah. So I don't have any advice for the New South Wales division. Pick the best candidate. There's 3 or 4 good ones. There's a couple of average ones, as there are in any Melbourne Cup. And I just wish them the best.
I love it. Beautifully handled. Delicately handled.
My advice, Kieran, is, why would you go with a tired, old, failed Liberal state minister who's got a sense of entitlement that it belongs to him, when you can actually choose a face for the future? I mean, if the Liberal Party wants to break down some of the stereotypes about it, there's got to be a better choice. And I'm not necessarily endorsing, I've never met or don't know the female candidate you mentioned before, but there's got to be a better choice than just a tired, old, entitled, failed state politician.
I love it. I love it. So we've got you right between the eyes, a very blunt message, and Michael.
KG, I can say down here, in the last 2 weeks, we've pre-selected Mary Aldred to take Russell Broadbent's seat, and she's a star, and of course Katie Allen in Higgins, and I think Katie Allen is also a star. I think she'll win Higgins back. So we've pre-selected 2 outstanding women here. As I said, I wish the New South Wales division all the very best.
Michael, Stephen, got to go. Got to talk about cricket. See you soon.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
See you soon.